In the heart of southern Angola, where ancient traditions whisper through the tall savanna grass, our story begins. In a village untouched by time, a young woman named Katumbo walked with a confidence that turned heads. The land was alive and green, the air filled with the song of birds and the rustle of leaves in the wind. Her destination was the Kapira, the small water pond that was the lifeblood of her community. It was there, under the vast African sky, that her life would change forever. As she bent to fill her gourd, she saw him kiss a tall and strong young man, the son of a neighboring chief. Their eyes met across the shimmering water in that silent, fleeting moment, without a single word spoken. Love was born. It was a connection as deep and as old as the earth beneath their feet. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in fiery colors and night began to fall, Katumbo sat with her parents around the crackling fire. After a simple meal of sour milk and sweet potatoes, she found her voice, softly, respectfully, with the firelight dancing on their faces. She told them of the encounter at the water pond. Her parents listened, their expressions thoughtful, understanding the weight of her words. The news traveled quickly, carried on the wind from one hut to another. The families met, and soon the entire village was buzzing with the announcement of a wedding. A great celebration erupted, filling the Sanzala with an explosion of life and joy. The powerful beat of drums echoed through the valleys, calling everyone to dance. The movements were ancient, a story told by bodies in motion, a pure expression of happiness. Cattle were brought forth for the feast, and the air filled with the aroma of roasting meat. Traditional drinks, brewed with care, flowed freely. Kisses family, honoring the custom, presented the bride price, 5 healthy cows, fine cloth, a warm blanket, and wine. The two families were now one. In the yard of the new couple's home, their own small hut, known as a ching, a young banana tree was planted. 'Twas a powerful symbol, a living prayer for fertility, for the children who would hopefully soon fill their home with laughter. Katumbo and Kiss began their new life together, their hearts full of hope, their future seemingly as bright and promising as the morning sun. Time, however, moves to its own rhythm. The seasons began to turn, the sun beat down, and the rains came and went. 2 months passed, then 4, then 9. The world around them changed. The small banana tree, planted on their wedding day, grew strong and tall. It flourished, eventually bearing a large, ripe bunch of fruit. But inside their ching, there was only silence. Katumbo's womb remained empty. A quiet tension began to creep into their lives, a shadow falling over their once bright love. The whispers started softly at first, then grew louder. The village elders, their faces etched with concern, gathered to discuss the matter. The families, once united in celebration, now met with strained voices and anxious hearts. Accusations were hinted at. Blame was shifted. The joyous atmosphere of the wedding had evaporated, replaced by a heavy, sorrowful cloud of disappointment and confusion. The hope that had once blossomed so beautifully was beginning to wither. The weight of shame and the sting of whispered words became too much for Katumbo to bear. She felt the eyes of the village on her, every glance a judgment, every silence a condemnation. One day, Her heart heavy with a sorrow too deep to explain, she made a decision. She ran, leaving behind her home, her husband, and the life she had known. Katumbo fled the village. She walked for days along dusty, lonely paths, her face a mask of pain and her spirit crushed. Her journey was long, but she finally found refuge in a distant Zanzibar, a place where no one knew her story, where she could try to escape the shadow of her past. She settled there, attempting to build a new life, to piece together the broken parts of her heart. But news travels even across great distances. Kiss, tormented by her absence, eventually learned where she had gone. Driven by a desperate need to bring her back, he journeyed to the new village. He found her, but his heart sank when he discovered she was not alone. She was now living with another man. Kiss pleaded with her, his voice thick with emotion, begging her to return to their home, to their life together. But Katumbo, her resolve hardened by her ordeal, refused. She would not go back to the shame and the judgment. Seeing her with another, her refusal a final, sharp blow, broke something inside Kiss. A venomous jealousy, dark and powerful, coiled around his heart. It twisted his thoughts, clouded his reason, and the first seeds of madness began to take root in his mind. He was no longer the man she had met by the water. He was a man on the edge of a terrible abyss. In the deep, still hours before dawn, when the village was wrapped in a profound silence, Kiss returned. The other man was away, out on a hunt, leaving the path clear. Creeping like a shadow, he entered Katumbo's hut. What happened next was a blur of rage and despair. In a sudden, tragic impulse, Kiss drew his makonda, a traditional dagger. There was a swift movement, a terrible finality. We do not see the blow land, but we hear the dull, heavy sound of a body falling to the earth floor. The silence that follows is deeper and more terrifying than before. The deed is done. Kiss, his hands now stained with an unforgivable act, stumbled out of the hut, his mind shuddering. He fled in a blind terror, running without thought, his feet carrying him back to the place where it all began, the Kpira. He stared into the water, and in its shimmering reflection he saw her. He saw Katumbo, alive, smiling, her beautiful coily hair framing her face, just as she was the day they first met. The sounds of the world around him began to distort, the chirping of birds and the rustle of leaves twisting into a nightmarish chorus. His spirit broke, and his mind collapsed completely into the dark depths of madness. When the village awoke, the tragedy was discovered. The elders seized Kiss, but the man they captured was already gone. He stared into the emptiness, his eyes vacant, his spirit utterly broken. He was lost to the world, a prisoner in his own shattered mind. As the sun set slowly over the grieving village, a sorrowful voice seemed to rise from the land itself, mourning what had been lost. All mourned the sad fate of beautiful Katumbo, who, it was discovered, had carried a child in her womb, and all mourned Kiss as well, for jealousy, that cruel thief, had stolen his mind and his heart, leaving only tragedy in its wake. Oh, love that began like a hopeful sunrise had ended in the deepest, most sorrowful night. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please consider subscribing for more tales from the heart of our shared human experience.